I'll start like this. Morality is relative. I got into many debates in law school about this because people were like, slavery is wrong and it's not, it's immoral. And I'm like, in the context of this culture, absolutely. If we go back to like ancient Rome, they didn't consider it immoral, they considered it a hierarchy.
Welcome to the Deep Gripping Reality Podcast. I'm your host, Steve, and with me today, this is Ginger, and he is one of my good friends. He's also, some would say, a serial entrepreneur, at least in his heart.
Of all the things you can be serial about, I'll take entrepreneurial, you know?
Oh, yeah, or you could be a breakfast guy, or,
As long as it's not serial followed by killer.
I
That's
knew
the
that was
question.
coming. Damn it. You beat me by like 4 seconds. So today's show is going to be really interesting because we're going to talk about how your moral philosophies can either help or hinder your business practices. And to kind of give a little bit of credence to both of us, those who regularly listen to my show know that I've been on kind of a journey of education daily. I try to learn something new every day, but also I'm working on my MBA. You already have way more degrees than I do. How many degrees do you have?
Juris Doctorate, master's in business administration, and I swear to God, I don't remember what the undergrad degree was. I drank right through it and lit it on fire when they gave it to me.
That's hilarious.
So I really don't remember. I think it was poli-sci with like a business minor, but they call it political science. What it really means is you can get drunk, go argue with people, and then they hand you a degree after 4 years and say, boy, did you do a thing.
You did it. Basically, here's a fun thing I learned. C's get degrees. Didn't know that until now. And I haven't gotten any C's, but somebody said that to me. And I'm like, you're telling me this 7 years into my journey when I'm like focused on getting B's and A's?
Well, there's an old joke in law school about that where they say if you get A's, you're going to be a professor when you get out because you understand the material, you can teach it, right? If you get B's, you'll make a fine attorney. You understand the material, but maybe not all the nuances. You'll learn it. You'll keep going. If you get C's, well, your honor.
Well, Your Honor. That's pretty good. So with my degrees, it's always, I knew from the minute I went back to school that it was going to be marketing. I love marketing. When I discovered that I love that instead of sales, that was it. And I've tried to take my moral values and my ethical values and figure out how to push that into business practices that helped push businesses forward.
Sure.
Now, we're going to talk specifically about something new I learned about today, but I want to know about you and how you feel like this type of thing can either elevate or really hold down your success in business.
I'll start like this. Morality is relative. People don't like to acknowledge that. They don't. I got into many debates in law school about this because people were like, slavery is wrong and it's not, it's immoral. And I'm like, in the context of this culture, absolutely. If we go back to like ancient Rome, they didn't consider it immoral. They considered it a hierarchy. I'm not saying that I think slavery is right. Let me be clear. I think it's wrong and disgusting, but I think it's important to understand that morality is relative to the society that you live in. So when people come at you with different pieces of like, well, I don't think this is okay or I don't think that's okay, you need to be able to decide for yourself where you think society is as well as your own personal values. And that's more, I pay more attention to the societal values and how it will be taken in the context of business. Because if you're doing business, it's not just about how you feel, it's about how you operate within a society. So that's where I push towards is moral relativism. There are things that I have to endure and do that I don't agree with personally. I've always been told since a fairly young age that life's full of that, and you just got to soldier up and deal with it. And you do it in a variety of ways. Most people, they get home from work and then they just launch into a venting, ranting fest about their fuckhead of a boss, this or, you know.
And then they kick their cat.
Oh my God, just nonstop. And that's a lot of people. And I call it the chain of screaming because somebody screams at them at the office, then they go home and scream at their spouse about, you know, what they got screamed about. And then maybe that goes on to the kids. And it's just a whole fucking chain. I don't like doing that. It's not really my way. I take more of a stoic approach on that front. You know, if there's something wrong, it's something to ponder, it's something to consider. It's not necessarily something that needs to be shared.
Yeah.
And sometimes it does. But we've hit the reverse point in culture where before we had a culture that was kind of that toxic masculinity that everybody talks about now. Whereas like if you are in pain emotionally, shut the fuck up. And
Yeah,
that's
I
how
hate
it
that.
used to be. And I remember being raised, that was one of the pieces that I talked about with a good friend of mine. And he said, you know, if you are a man and you cry at the bar, you cry alone. If you are a woman and you cry at the bar, there's always a helping hand because somebody's probably going to want to fuck you.
Yeah.
And there's a difference in genders and the roles that we were assigned by society, and it's slowly changing. You know, we're not seeing that same vibe that we used to where it was, if you're a dude and you're crying, go sit over there.
Yeah.
We don't want to deal with you.
Yeah.
Now there's more openness about it. Have you ever read the books by Zitzen Liu? He
No.
wrote a series of books. I love them. It's the best sci-fi I've ever read. What I really liked about it is it dealt with societal progression and how it works kind of like circular, cyclical, somewhat like fashion.
Nice.
And it was over the course of hundreds of generations. This series of 3 books starts in like olden day China. It's written by a Chinese author that it all got translated because it was so well written. He won all the awards. They translated it to English. I've read it a few times now. Fantastic trilogy. But it starts with like old school China going through a revolution. And then you get into the later books and you start to see these cycles reappear. You know, we have periods of time where humanity is what they consider softer. And that's when the food is bountiful and plentiful, and there's enough for everybody. And then you get into, the society's at war with an alien race. And now every resource counts. So now it's much more militaristic and it's harder. And there isn't a whole lot of, how are you doing today? How do you feel?
Very Spartan.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's how do you operate within the structure that's given to you?
Yeah.
And that's a long-winded, ranty way of saying, morality is relativistic, but also society cycles. So where it is today is not where it's going to be in 20 years. South Park actually did a whole piece on this at one point when the whole, quote-unquote, woke culture came through. And there was like 2 farmers sitting there smoking weed at the end of an episode, and they're talking to each other. And they go, oh, looks like the woke parade's back again. How long do you think it'll last this time? It goes, oh, about 7 years. They were actually dead on because that was when Trump got elected. It was
That's
7 years
crazy.
later, which was kind of the death knell of let's die on every hill vibes.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And now you have candidates that are running on being anti-woke. Like that's the whole, slogan for it. And it's, I don't know. I feel like every generation, I don't get too much into politics on this show, but every generation has to have a boogeyman.
Right.
And if there isn't one, you manufacture it and then you get a lot of people to agree with it based on morality. You know what I mean? So that's a really good set of points. And I will definitely have to look into it as a business professional. If you're not trying to learn and you're not trying to grow and you're not trying to figure out, okay, how can I do something beneficial for other people every day? And this is what I feel. Then you're going to set yourself up for slow failure. And I say that because when I'm in a business interaction with somebody, my first thought is, okay, how can this be mutually beneficial? I try to understand their needs, even if I don't agree with them, even if I don't think I can meet them. That's how you can go at something and find common ground, right? And so I think society at large, having different positions and views on certain things, I think what it comes down to for me is you have to be willing to really think about how you can leave a positive impact, period.
Okay.
And here's why I say that. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from a guy named Kim Robinson. And he taught door-to-door sales.
Sure.
And he said, if you really want somebody to absolutely love you and think you're the greatest guy on the planet, ask questions. Ask them questions and listen and repeat back the things they say. Because the more somebody feels like you're getting to know them, the more that they're going to feel like they know you. Despite the fact you can not say a single word about yourself, but they're going to assume just because you're listening and they're getting a chance to put it out there. So when you approach, business interactions specifically, when you approach them with a trying to listen to understand needs first perspective, even if you don't address any of them, just the act of listening, I think, is so underutilized in this society.
Now, when you look at that also, dear listener, it's worth noting that there's a darker version of that that you can consider. If you're like, oh, I don't know, maybe I don't want to listen, blah, blah, blah. All right, let's talk about social capital and sociopathic ways to build it. Asking questions that they answer actually gains you social capital in those contexts because people don't usually have people that care about them.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of people that ask them how their day is. They don't have a lot of people that ask about any part of their life. So as you ask them these questions, even as a salesman, they begin to give social capital to you because you're taking time out of your day to ask them about their life. I'm aware that this is not a popular way of looking at it, nor am I saying it should be looked at that way. But if we're looking at it from a purely business point, you can't separate that entirely either. There's a certain amount of social obligation. There's a social contract that we're all a part of, whether we realize it or not. And many people don't because they don't have the social wherewithal or what do they call it? EQ, emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
They don't have that level of intelligence to understand whether their actions are helping or hurting their social capital.
Yep.
You see these people regularly, honestly, as content creators because they'll ask for such minor, trivial things, and they don't think it costs them anything. They'll be like, well, just click here, just go here, just do this, just do that. They'll always more and more and more.
Yeah.
And they burn out their audience doing it.
Yeah.
There's only so many calls to
Spending
action.
social capital.
Yeah.
It's because there's trust. And so, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I told you I wasn't going to do that, and I'm doing it. But you brought up such a great point there, because how many times are we hearing about these scam companies, essentially, that paid tons of money to YouTubers that are like, do this, whatever it is, whatever the big thing is, you can go do this, and they're sponsoring us and blah, blah, blah. Well, your viewers trust you. You've built up that social capital, as you put it. And so if you are giving your stamp of approval that this is something that you approve of, it's not just that company, and they may just be spending that money to support you. And so you got to be careful with any partnership. You got to be careful who you're partnering with, because if you dance with the devil, there's going to be pictures. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I might put that on a t-shirt. That's nice. If you dance with the devil, there's going to be pictures. That's good. I like that.
Hashtag nudes.
That's right. No. Hashtag send devil nudes. No. God dang it. But no, that's a great point, is you don't want to burn that social capital. But that's also a great point that people want to talk about themselves. They want to feel valued. And when you listen, and you actually listen, you're building that value because you care.
Yeah, you build it as a resource. Old school mayors. Think about the old school mayors of 50 years ago. How did they become mayor? Usually because they had a good family name and because they knew everybody. They talked to everybody. They networked. They knew how to go. And that's all networking really is it's building social capital. People always look at networking like it's this weird, ethereal concept. It's not. It's literally just sitting down and talking to enough people that they remember you at the right moment.
Yeah. And usually, if you're asking questions about them and you're getting to know them in that respect, they're going to have positive things to say about you, even if they don't know a lot about you.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting. So the principle that I was going to talk about is Stoicism. Now, I've heard the phrase, he's stoic. And when I heard that phrase, I thought it meant, okay, so he's kind of quiet, reserved, he likes to think things through. And I figure with this last, 5 minutes or so of the show, we can talk about what I learned today, which is the actual philosophy of personal ethics and methodology for seeking practical wisdom in life is what Stoicism is defined as. So it's an actual philosophy, and the idea is you focus on what you can control and accept what you can't. You take actions according to reason and virtue. You be virtuous and lead by example. You diminish ego and be humble, and you realize that you're not entitled to anything, so you should be grateful for what you have. And then this is one of my favorites: exercise your will and endure hardships with courage, and then live harmoniously with nature and the universal law of nature. And I think that those real 4-pillar virtues of wisdom and courage and temperance and justice working together is absolutely intriguing to me.
If you look at Alcoholics Anonymous, they actually take the subtext of that pretty seriously, and they put a lot of it into their program. That 12-step program has a lot of that. I call it quiet growth.
Yeah.
It's not being loud about it. It's not getting out and putting out a video on YouTube of how you're doing yoga in repose.
Yeah.
And look at how I'm just taking time to, quiet growth means you don't need other people's validation.
Yeah.
You're doing what you need to do for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a very valuable thing. I think that a lot of times the reason that people share their personal growth journey is because they're looking for validation and vindication, and to an extent, they're wanting a way to hold themselves accountable by putting an audience in front of it. However, one of the principles of Stoicism is that ego is the enemy. And so if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, you're not going to do well. And Marcus Aurelius wrote a book called Meditations. It was just a collection of his journals that have since been published as Meditations. It's one that I plan to read. I learned about it today. And there's a lot of this in practice. So I'm going to
It's not half bad.
Have you read it?
It's not as good as Sun Tzu, but it's not half bad.
Well, Art of War, man.
Much more my style, yes.
So
I'm not a stoic, though,
Fair. That's why I find this intriguing, is this whole principle, because I've never heard of this, but it makes a lot of sense for the path that I'm on right now.
You mean content creation?
Yeah, essentially.
I don't think that's Stoicism.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Steve, I'm going to put it up there.
No, it is. Ego is the enemy. No.
It's about the loudest growth you can have is into a microphone.
Hey, everyone, we're growing together. This should be the tagline of the Deep Gripping Reality. I mean, even the name of it is deep. Anyway, so these are how I wanted to come up with practical applications for daily life and get your take on it.
Okay.
We have literally 5 minutes. I want to hold myself to the time that you said you had.
Okay.
Okay. So the first one is make Stoic affirmation. So start your day with a statement that reminds you of your Stoic values and goals.
Okay.
So beginning of the day, that's the first one.
Sure.
Second one, keep death in mind. So the Stoics kept the inevitability of death in their mind in everything they did, and it helped them to appreciate life and focus on what matters most.
Okay.
The next one was eat as a Stoic would. So the Stoics' practice was to eat sparsely and for nourishment, not for pleasure. They viewed Socrates' idea of eating to live, not living to eat. Fuck that. I'm just going to say, if I adopt any of these Stoic practices, I'm throwing that out there. And then work. Oh, I like this. Work at your own worth. So this is what you were just saying. Stoics believed that we should focus on our own actions and character and not external rewards or recognition. They also advised us to avoid envy, jealousy, and comparison with others.
So let's start with the first question that I think needs to be answered. Is Stoicism something that was created by the bougie upper class to keep everyone else in check? Like, hey, don't ask for validation. Just keep going in that factory.
Weirdly, no. So I know this, actually. This is going to answer that.
Okay.
So there was this guy. It was founded by a guy named Zeno of Citium around 300 BC in Athens, Greece. What happened was this guy was a trader, and he specifically specialized in transporting very large aquatic animals that were the only animals that produced a certain type of purple ink, and purple was used for royal and dyes, and very, very hard to get a hold of. So that's why a huge storm comes along, destroys his ship, everything, literally everything he had destroyed, and he washes up in Athens, Greece at the time that the Greeks were really big into philosophy. And that's how he came across these principles of Stoicism.
So he lost everything of value in his life and then said, you know what? I don't think anyone should have anything of value in this life. I think we should all just be grateful that we're alive.
No, well, kind of. I mean, I think it's more of a Buddhist thing. You know what I mean? Like, the idea is be grateful for what you have and realize that material possessions or the lack thereof tend to be the cause of a lot of pain.
I mean, credit where credit's due on that front, because we live in a culture right now that's very much about the 15 seconds of fame. That's, you know, like everybody's trying to go viral. Everybody wants to make money going viral so they don't have to work a job they hate. And because of this clout chasing that's happening, it's the exact opposite of Stoicism. And it's at times kind of disgusting. It's not really something I'm interested in outside of comedy. I love it for comedy.
Yeah, it's great for comedy.
But when people are, I don't know, like I get TikTok sent to me all the time, and it's always people bitching about something for clout. And I'm just like, I don't have time for this shit. I don't care.
Do you want to share your TikTok so that my audience could share stuff to bitch at you for clout? Is that because you can do that? I'm okay with that.
No.
Might as well plug it.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Funny. Well, okay. So 2 final pieces here. Practice gratitude. The Stoics were grateful for everything they had, even the smallest things. They also expressed their gratitude to others and to the universe.
So, like, you know, a deeper version of Christianity, not just Thanksgiving thanks. You know?
Yeah. Basically, always be thankful.
Every day's Thanksgiving, but don't eat like it. Yeah. That's what Stoicism seems to be.
Well, it's, you know, there's that old. The funny thing is, there's a very core principle of Stoicism is something that I got from Christianity, which was the whole God grant me the serenity to accept that things blah 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 can't change, all that. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, the alcoholic's prayer.
Basically, this literally one of them is. Stoics practice the art of acquiescence, which means accepting what we can't change and moving on with our lives. They don't. They avoid complaining, blaming, or regretting. My whole thing that I liked about all of this was the idea. I've been a firm believer that discomfort breeds growth.
Comfort zones are by definition not going to allow you to grow.
Exactly. If you're comfortable, you're stagnant, and if you're stagnant, you fail.
Yeah, everything atrophies if you sit around and do nothing.
Exactly. So this idea that Stoics would actually seek out discomfort so that they could grow really resonated with me. So are there any of the things that we've talked about today that you feel like, and they talk about meditation and remembering your comeback so you remember how to be resilient, but is there anything that we've talked about that you feel like would be really good things that people could take away or that you might even put into practice?
Honestly, I mean, I'm not a Stoic. I'm never going to be. I have a brother that is like hardcore, like climbs rocks, meditates, works.
So not just a hippie.
No. Like works a job that he's comfy with, and it allows him to do the things he cares about when he's done with work.
Nice.
And he works 4 days a week so he can be in the mountains 3 days a week.
Nice.
And that's who he is, and he and I'll put it this way. When I came back from college at different points, I would bring home, whatever lady I was dating. He's never done that once. I've never seen most of the women he's ever dated. I have no idea who they are, don't know their names. He's never told me. It's not his style. He's very quiet about it. He just lives his life. And that's how he likes it. Me, I'm a little bit louder. Hence, we're on this right now talking.
Yeah,
you know
right?
what I mean?
Yeah. And your arm, you've got this amazing tattoo all down your arm that pretty much screams, I'm a quiet, reserved guy.
Yeah, this screams, I don't want attention, Steve.
Yeah, of course.
That's why there's all these skulls, because I don't want people looking, obviously.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, there's nothing about that says, look at me.
The hair color, too,
Yeah, and that's natural. You can't fight that.
I could dye it or shave it.
Yeah, come on now. Thank you so much for being on the show. It's always fun talking, and it's always nice to be able to use this studio for testing purposes, because all of my shows are always testing stuff out. So thank you so much. And until next time, dig deep, my friends.
And for all you Stoics out there, and you're probably not going to comment on this, but thanks for listening.
Yeah. Thanks for internalizing it. We appreciate it. That's hilarious.